Richard Larson, known in academic circles as Dr. Q, at his office at MIT, he said he would never stand in a Black Friday line, but allowed that it makes sense. In some weird way, standing in line is a pain. At the post office, at the box office, at a restaurant. But on Black Friday, it's an experience. The first spot outside some Best Buy stores is usually claimed weeks in advance, often by a person in a tent. Shoppers at Walmart will print out maps of the store, with circles around their primary targets. Someone, somewhere, will try to cut in line at a Target, arousing the wrath of the cold, cranky people who played it fair. At stake are both bargains and bragging rights, turning what would otherwise be a miserable experience into an adventure. Sign up for the morning briefing newsletter. These cues are quite different than the usual annoying ones we encounter day to day at the ATM or in the subway, said Richard Larson, a professor at MIT, who has spent years studying line behavior. Professor Larson, whose nickname in academic circles is Dr. Q, said he would never wait in a line on Black Friday himself. Research is sparse on the lines that form during the post-Thanksgiving retail extravaganza, he said, but he acknowledged that the habit makes sense. In some weird way, the lines, he said, are once a year. They're exhilarating. They're the kind you might tell your grandchildren about. Not that Professor Larson personally sees the appeal. It confuses me, he said. Lines test patience, personal space and principles of fairness and rationality, especially on Black Friday, when the crowds can be overwhelming. Still, the promise of a once-a-year score lures hordes of shoppers to queues that start before sunrise, or in some cases, the night before. So why do people wait? Jeffrey Inman, a veteran of Black Friday lines and president of the Society for Consumer Psychology, said that many families treat the horse-long experience as a bonding ritual and a cherished tradition. It's not a chore, said Mr. Inman, who is also a professor of marketing at the University of Pittsburgh. And there's this layer of competition to it, with people edging forward, getting in their ready stance, because there are only so many of those big screen TVs inside the door. The behavior of people in lines has inspired decades of research. So-called queuing theory examines why lining up by yourself induces more anxiety than being in a group, why choosing between multiple lines is more aggravating than standing single file, and even how music and scent can improve the wait. The Black Friday shopping event generates unique circumstances for lines. Preordained opening hours mean that the time the line should start moving is predictable, which can sometimes cause customers to become more agitated as the end approaches. Sometimes, the behavior of the queue turns violent. In 2008, a crowd of more than 2,000 shoppers waiting at Walmart store on Long Island began pounding and pressing on the glass doors. A few minutes before the scheduled 5 a.m. opening time, the doors shattered and shoppers stampeded through, fatally trampling a worker. Demore, 34. The gotta-have-it atmosphere resembles the one that arises when a new iPhone or Beyonce concert tickets go on sale, and that most likely amplifies excitement and makes the wait seem shorter. Professor Larson said, the limited supply of discounted merchandise can also inspire the same mentality that is common when there is a shortage of any other supply. People may actually gravitate toward longer lines, so they can feel a greater sense of accomplishment once they finally make a purchase. People's willingness to wait is, in some sense, proportional to the perceived value of whatever they're waiting to acquire. Professor Larson said, even if they don't know what the line is for, they reason that whatever's at the end of it must be fantastically valuable.